Hello and welcome everyone to the LifeShot podcast. Today I've got Emily Rombeau. Rombeau? Did I say that right? Sorry.
Rombeau, that's right,
Rombeau.
that's right.
Or I almost had it nailed there right in the beginning. So that was
Yeah,
victory.
and then you hesitated and it all went wrong.
Oh no, can't do that. Can't do that. Emily, how are you doing today, by the way?
Well, I'm doing very well. Thank you very much, Clint, for having me on your podcast.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, great to have you. And I just made a connection with you through just some of the groups that I'm on Facebook, and somebody mentioned your name, that you work for a particular company that makes supplements. And I thought, yes, I want to talk to somebody who knows a little bit about supplements, because there's a lot of talk right now about supplements. You know, zinc. You get a lot of people talking about if your zinc is low, and I think that's what happens with people with COVID, and they can't smell properly because their zinc is low or something. And vitamin D levels, especially in darker skinned people who live maybe in the countries where there's not as much sun,
Yeah.
having problems, etc. So maybe we could just kick it off to tell us a bit about yourself, Emily, before we jump into vitamins and supplements, about what you're studying at the moment, where you hope to go with what you're doing. Just be a bit interesting to find out about you personally.
Right. So actually, I've been working in finance for the past 12 years now, and I still work full-time in finance. And on the side, I'm also studying naturopathic nutrition at the College of Naturopathic Medicine in London. It's a big institution that has many campuses across the UK and Ireland, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And on top of that, I'm also working with USANA nutritional supplements to help people improve their health, sleep better, feel more energetic, be more productive at work, and just improve their overall wealth. So I'm not working for USANA per se. I'm just distributing and like working with their supplements to help people. So I'm doing quite a lot of things. Yeah.
So why does like working for Asana and doing that interest you? What do you think is particularly good about promoting that type of thing?
Well, I think there's two things. The first thing is that more and more people are actually realizing that nutrition has a massive impact on health, which might sound like something obvious, but when you think about it, you go, and when you feel ill and you're not feeling well, and you go to your GP to talk about it, you only have 10 minutes, and it's very rare that your GP would make specific recommendation on what you should eat, what you should drink, how and when you should eat and drink to improve your health and not fall ill and not require drugs or medications. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that since over the past, I would say, 4 to 5 decades, we have seen all the studies conducted either throughout Europe or in UK or France or the United States show that the nutritional value of the foods we eat, and in particular vegetables and fruits, has diminished because the quality of the soil has significantly decreased because of all the fertilizers, pesticides that
Also the farming techniques.
used.
Yeah. The
Yes,
farming
that's
techniques
right.
used are not so good. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's catch-22. Like all those techniques have kind of eradicated hunger in Western countries, but on the flip side, what we eat has much less nutritional value, which kind of means that yes, okay, you can improve you can improve your nutrition, you can eat the very good things,
Yeah.
but even so, you still run the risk of being insufficient in the few areas because of the decreased quality in soil, and that's where the supplements come into the picture.
Sure. But you almost think, oh, where are you going to get supplements from if everything starts to get depleted? Can we just make supplements in the laboratory without actually getting it from natural food substances? How does that actually work?
I think you can. I mean, I'm not an expert in that, and I think that yes, overall, it's always better to get all the vitamins and the minerals and the trace elements that your body needs to function properly through foods. But for various reasons, it might not be always the case. So Yes, it is. It is possible to make
Manufacture.
vitamins.
Yeah, make
To
them
get,
in
yeah,
the laboratory,
yes, very much
concocted.
possible.
So I was watching on Netflix. There's I can't remember the name of the documentary now, but it talked about soil and how vital it is to humanity. You know, from the dust we came, really. And if we start to deplete that, we're doing everything an injustice, not just ourselves, but the entire planet, by farming in the way that we are farming.
Mhm.
Um, and there's people in America. There's this organization going around saying, "Hey guys, this is how you should farm," and to really protect the soil that they're in. And actually, you can make more money. So if there's a farmer listening right now, I should check out that. I'll hopefully find the link for you. And you want to just farm in a different way that's more sustainable, more profitable, actually. Then there's actually better ways to farm and to save the soil and to make more money. So there's definitely better ways to do things. But that's the beauty of communication, collaboration, and also the internet now, and so much stuff going around, people talking about things. I really think it does help to spark ideas and to think about how we can overcome things. Now, think about, let's get onto this area of vitamin D, because we've been through a
Yeah.
pandemic. Actually, we've got the second wave now. There's a lot of stuff happening, and there's this article in the BBC. I'll just share the screen quickly about. It's saying that it's not a cure, or at least you can't treat COVID with vitamin D, and that's fair enough, because it's not something you can say, well, here's a pill, take a vitamin D, and your COVID will disappear. Obviously, that's not what we're saying. But I think that preventative, and we'll talk about preventative, like
Yes.
through, is much better, right? So what's your thoughts on this in particular?
Well, I think, I mean, right now, there's obviously more and more studies are actually conducted to look at the impact of using vitamin D to treat people who have already been infected with COVID and who are exhibiting
Okay.
severe symptoms in particular. But I think it's the kind of the wrong way to look at it, because what I think the most striking thing when it comes to relationship between COVID-19 and vitamin D is the fact that the people who are actually exhibiting the most severe symptoms
Yeah.
of COVID-19, so difficulty breathing and so on, those people are much more likely to be deficient in vitamin D, if not
Oh,
severely
really?
deficient in vitamin D, compared with people who
Mm.
either don't get infected with COVID but don't exhibit don't realize that they are asymptomatic, or people who are symptomatic but just have mild symptoms. And that goes to show the various roles, the various biological roles that vitamin D plays in our body that the general public is not really aware of. Like, I
Sure.
think pretty much everyone got the memo that vitamin D is absolutely essential for bone health, but I'm not sure that there's been a lot of communication around the fact that vitamin D is absolutely essential for immunity, for anti-cancer protection,
Sure.
even for it can help prevent diabetes type 2,
Sure.
for example. So, but still, there's a few arguments out there for to advocate for the use of vitamin D in conjunction with other with drugs for the treatment of patients who exhibit severe symptoms of COVID-19.
Okay.
And I can think of a press release that was published by the French Academy of Medicine. I think it was back in May, who they basically explained that based on the study that was conducted in Ireland, if I'm not mistaken, they were recommending that COVID-19 patients above a certain age who exhibited severe symptoms of COVID be given a loading dose of vitamin D of 50,000 to 100,000 international units of vitamin D, just to improve their levels of vitamin D in the body significantly too, so that vitamin D could then exert immune regulating
Some
function.
kind of
So
influence, yeah. Because I was just listening to Ben Greenfield, and I'll just share this little tab with us quickly. speaking about it upregulates, or it has an epigenetic effect on over 2,500 genes.
Yes.
And you mentioned 50,000 units, international units of vitamin D. And there's a mention in that in this podcast that this one I listened to by Ben Greenfield, and he's speaking to Dr. Mercola about walking in the sunshine for about 2 hours in a very hot country can give you 20,000 units in just one go, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty intense. How do we actually measure? So you're saying, to boost someone up, let's say, you have a boost of vitamin D. How do they actually measure to what your vitamin D levels are at the minute? Well, how would you know you're deficient? First of all, maybe how would you know you're deficient at home, and then how would you know you're deficient through a test? Maybe that's a good question.
Well, I mean, right now it's winter. When we're in another hemisphere, it's very likely that even if you go out, I guess if you go out 10 minutes. I go out 20 or 30 minutes in the morning. Even so, I don't think that the sunlight exposure in the morning would be enough for me to synthesize enough vitamin D for that would be required for my body to function optimally. What you could do is have a vitamin D test. I don't think there's any way for you to measure at home with a vitamin D kit how much vitamin D there is in your body, but there's different things to take into consideration. The fact is, you can either your skin can either synthesize vitamin D free, or you can eat sources of vitamin D2 or D3. But then those sources, that vitamin D3 you synthesize, or those foods you ingest, contain inactive form of vitamin D.
Inactive.
So your liver needs to transform that vitamin D2 or D3 into a more active form, and then the kidney will transform that into the most active form of vitamin D, which will then be used by the different organs and tissues in your body. Wow. And the way to measure vitamin D, the scientific consensus is to look at the level of vitamin D that has been converted into the liver. So and there might be different reasons as to why the conversion of vitamin of inactive D2 or D3 in your liver might not be optimal. So there are cases where you could have a very good sunlight exposure, or your diet might be very rich in vitamin D2 or D3, but actually your level of vitamin D3 circulating in your body might not be as high as you would like.
So even though you're consuming it, your body is not synthesizing it in the liver. Is that what you were saying?
The liver needs to transform D2 or D3 into a more active form, which is called calcidiol, and this is calcidiol levels that would be used as scientifically as a measure of the overall amount of vitamin D that is circulating in your body. So one thing that could impair the synthesis, for example, if your digestive system is not absorbing the vitamin D you're eating. So for example, if you're not eating enough fats, because vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, or you might get it doesn't matter if you're in the sun for a couple of hours, because if your body is not making enough cholesterol, you're not going to synthesize as much vitamin D as you would like, because vitamin D is synthesized from cholesterol in your skin. So again, you need to eat fats.
Well, so while we're on the, I love fats and the topic of fats, by the way. What type of fats should we be eating, do you think? What's your opinion?
The easiest way, I mean, it's the richest source of vitamin D3, which are the animal sources of vitamin D, is fatty fish. So actually, if you eat salmon or herring or tuna, only one, you've got only one. You've got the fats. You've got the good fats in there. You've got polyunsaturated fatty acids, and you've got the vitamin D as well. So if let's say I had a look at food database earlier this week, like if you eat, let's say 100 grams of fatty fish every day,
Yeah.
you've got enough food to provide you with the recommended intake of vitamin D3.
Really?
Every day, just by eating
consuming
fatty
fish.
fish every day.
Yeah.
But those are to obtain the levels that are recommended by the UK government, for example, or actually the levels are the same in the US. We're talking about recommendations. We're not talking about optimal levels.
That's just to sustain yourself, really, isn't it?
It's
Optimal levels
just
will be a lot higher.
yeah, that's right.
And does your body store, like think about vitamin D in the body circulating? You mentioned the word circulating. So does it actually accumulate? So let's say I went in the sun for like a week and I was having a nice sunny holiday, and then my body's got all this vitamin D and it's kind of like stored. And then for the next 2 weeks I was indoors. Does it like slow down, and then my storage of vitamin D is then depleted? Is that how it works?
Yes, your body, since it's a fat soluble vitamin, your body would store it in fatty tissues, so and in the liver as well. So yes, if let's say it's in the summer and you're out every day, especially at around midday, which is the best time for the
sun,
for your skin to synthesize D3. You can synthesize, yes, again, as you mentioned earlier, 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 every day. And those levels of synthesized vitamin would just be stored in your liver and in other tissues, including fatty tissues, and would that just be used by your body over time.
And so like in a tablet, you might get like 3,000 units. So is it possible for someone to say, look, I've got a 3,000 unit tablet, so I'll take 5 of these bad boys. You're not going to overdose, are you? Or would you? We're not going to say, yeah, guys, go and take 5 or 10 vitamin D tablets. But just in case someone wants to do that, do we recommend not to do that? I think.
Well, there's a couple of things there. There's the government official messages, like for example, Public Health England says that the upper safe limit of vitamin D is 4,000 international units per day, and that's the level at which and under which you don't run any risk in the long term. However, the problem is that the actual level of vitamin D toxicity is not really well known, probably because also for ethical issues, like there hasn't been any studies. Nobody has dared gathering a bunch of people and giving them pills after pills after pills of vitamin D and check the level at which people will start exhibiting toxicity symptoms. But what we know is that there's a couple of research articles out there that suggest that the toxicity, you're safe at levels below 10,000. But again, the national recommendations in the UK and the US, if I'm not mistaken, is really 4,000. There's very few cases of actual vitamin D toxicity. Pretty much all of which were accidents, either a dispensing error or a manufacturer just completely mislabeling the actual vitamin D content in tablets. So vitamin D toxicity can be a thing, but it's in actuality it's quite rare.
Sure. But we still, as LifeShot and as Emily, I'm sure we're not recommending to go and take as many pills as you want. But I think we can recommend is go and get in the sunshine and eat some really high vitamin D foods. Before we move on, we got some listeners listening in live. Guys, you're welcome to put some comments in. We can see your comments. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So you can just put your comments in there and we'll be able to see them here in the broadcast studio. So just let us know if you've got any questions. I want to just move on, Emily, to the question of the immune system. So vitamin D, kind of like, when people get, I think there's a new word that everyone knows now, and it's cytokine storm.
The cytokine storm.
everyone knows this new word and we like throwing it out there like, yeah, we're all professionals. So the cytokine storm that happens when somebody is infected with COVID and your body's like, it's going mad and it just over inflames everything. And that's why people can't breathe. That's what I understand.
That's
So
right.
with vitamin D, like it's such a clever system within the body. The cells respond to that, and vitamin D helps to switch on and switch off when it needs to. Could you explain a little bit about that to us?
Yeah, so basically, again, what happens with the cytokine storm is that the cytokine is basically chemical messenger within the immune system that is going to send signals like to increase the inflammation response, and it's that inflammation response that's gone completely berserk that is responsible for the severity of breathing symptoms experienced by some people who are infected with COVID. What vitamin D does, that, as you say, it's very clever because it will it regulates the T helper cells, and the T helper cells are kind of the what analogy could I use? It's kind of the very high-ranking police officer in a surveillance, like in kind of the studio, who's telling the police officers that are out there what they should do. It's kind of T helper is the coordinator. Exactly, it's good coordinator of the immune response. So if vitamin D regulates that, and what it also does, vitamin D also decreases, calms down all those pro-inflammatory cytokines. So if you have again, if you've got a very good level of vitamin D in your body, you might be infected with COVID. You might exhibit the symptoms, but the substantial level of vitamin D in your body would ensure that cytokine storm does not happen, or that it's minimized.
Yeah. Wow. So Pete was asking about being a vegan and then getting vitamin D. Sorry, just to switch the topic, and we'll come back to that in a minute. But I did say maybe in mushrooms that have been exposed to sunlight, and I don't know how they normally grow mushrooms nowadays. But there's other things, like I heard that vitamin D2 is a vegan hormone generated from plants. Well, I mean, is that true? I don't know.
That's right. Yeah. So basically, the most prominent source of vegan vitamin D, it's can be found in mushrooms in particular. So just to get into the details for a couple of minutes. So the mushrooms contain a sterol, which is called ergosterol, which is a biological precursor to ergocalciferol, which is the fancy name for vitamin D2. But the problem is that ergosterol can only be activated if it's exposed to UVB or UVA, actually, radiation. So if you eat mushrooms that have been grown in the dark, you're not going to get any vitamin D in there. But again, I came across a research article this week that explained whereby a couple of researchers did some tests maybe a decade ago that showed that actually I think one of the mushrooms that has the highest potential for vitamin D content is shiitake mushrooms. Because they contain a high amount of ergosterol, and actually if you what they did an experiment, like if you take shiitake mushrooms and you leave them under the sun, UVB or UVA radiation, for 15 minutes, and that would be enough to generate 400 international units of vitamin D, which corresponds to the recommended nutrient intake for vitamin D in the UK and the US.
That's good. And that's my wife there saying mushrooms are amazing. So
yes, they are.
Thanks, Esther. My number one fan. So I was shopping the other day at Tesco, not to push any particular supermarket, of course. They said they had these mushrooms called high in vitamin D. So if you are looking to now eat a bit more mushrooms because of the vitamin D content, do look for something that does actually say on the packaging, either exposed to UVB light or UVA, or it must say high in vitamin D, because if they are growing the mushrooms in the dark, like you said, Emily,
there's no point.
they're not going to have any vitamin D inside
Well,
of
I
them.
mean, you can always take those mushrooms and put them on your window ledge in the hope that
Oh, right. Okay.
yeah, you can do that. You can do that. It
Even
should
after they've been
work.
pulled out the ground, yeah?
Yes.
Interesting.
It should work. Should work.
Love a bit of fungi, like the Americans say, the fungi.
Fungi. They say fungi in America.
The Americans say fungi. Yeah, there was a
Okay.
thank Pete, no problem. And there's I'm just a documentary person. I asked my wife. I'm always watching documentaries. There's another documentary on Amazon Prime called it's called Fungi. I can't remember the name now, but just type in fungi or fungi in Amazon Prime. You'll see it's a documentary, and it's an amazing thing where it talks about how the fungi, the networks underground, are actually helping trees to communicate with their offspring. And you thought there's even something in the New York Times, I think it is, an article, and they got a podcast called the Daily Cast or something like that. I can't remember what the podcast called, and how this lady's she's actually experimenting, not experimenting, but researching in the forest how trees talk to their young and kind of communicate and give them the best. I don't know how they do it, but it's just like this interconnected world of magic that happens underground through these fungal networks. It's just amazing. And so I think, mushrooms is a great topic for me to think about, because I do love mushrooms themselves. But other foods, though, let's talk about. So I think in animals, you spoke about fish being there.
Yep.
We've spoken about mushrooms. What else? Is it like spinach or kale? Stuff like that? No, that's more like vitamin A.
I think the problem is that the major source of vitamin D should be the sunlight. There's actually very few sources of very few food sources, of vitamin D. As I said, we've got the mushrooms on the vegetarian side, and on the animal side, we've got the fatty fish, egg yolks. And funnily enough, liver doesn't seem to contain that much vitamin D. Like if you have 100 grams of I don't know, maybe calf of chicken liver, maybe you're gonna get 40 units. 40 units, which came as a surprise to me, because vitamin D, being a fat soluble vitamin, it's stored in the liver. So I would have thought you could find it in much bigger quantities in liver, but not that much. But again, that's based on a database that the UK government uses. Another obvious source of vitamin D3 I forgot to talk about. It's just come back to me. It's cod liver oil.
Cod liver oil,
Cod
so that's
liver
coming
oil,
from
yes.
fish.
Oh my God, it's you obviously wouldn't have 100 grams of cod liver oil. My God, you'd poison yourself.
You feel sick.
Yeah, you would really poison yourself. But 100 grams cod liver oil, it's hang on, let me.
You're looking for the amount of vitamin D that comes from there.
Oh, it's absolutely it's
staggering.
Like 210 micrograms. So in terms of international units, it's absolutely huge. It's really huge.
So do you recommend people then have those cod liver oil tablets, or those
actually no, I don't, because I think it's better to have
the actual fish? No.
Sorry?
I was just
from
wondering
the flesh. From the flesh. I think it's better to have vitamin D along with omega-3 from the flesh of fatty fish, like small fatty fish, like sardines, in particular. First of all, because when you take liver oil, you run the risk of even if you're being really good, it's to be really on the cautious side, you run the risk of intoxication, for example, with vitamin A, which we know is found in very high quantities in the liver. And also, it's good to go for smaller fish, because smaller fish are, because of their small size, are less likely to have a buildup of toxins and pesticides.
Sure. So that's like eating too much tuna, you might get a mercury overload.
That's right. Yes. I mean, I love tuna, so I try not to eat it more than once per week. But
Once a
actually,
week.
just
Yeah.
a quick tip: there's a natural way for you to kind of neutralize the mercury that can be found in tuna, and that's to use coriander, because
Oh, really?
coriander is what is called a natural chelator. It would kind of latch on to the mercury, and
And then
neutralize
expel that from
it.
the body.
Exactly.
There's like activated charcoal, isn't it? Similar thing. Activated charcoal will also bind to the toxins and then get rid of them out your body.
Do you take
Some,
activated charcoal?
yeah,
Because
I
I've
used
never
to.
tried it.
No, yeah, I used to
Okay.
take a lot, and it doesn't actually make you feel any different. As in, you think, well, I'm eating charcoal, that's a bit weird. Why would anyone put charcoal in their bodies? But
Yes.
they use it in the emergency rooms anyway. Like if someone's taken some kind of toxic supplement,
Right.
a toxic substance, then they actually use it in emergency rooms to get rid of that substance in people's bodies. So it's been around for years and years and years. But now you can also get activated charcoal from a lot of supplement places.
Yeah.
I get it from Love Life Supplements, which is available on Amazon and all that, and I think it's pretty good. But yeah, it's one of the. It's like it's a biohack in a way. I wouldn't say it's not like. I think biohack's got a weird connotation to it, but I think if from a biohacker's perspective, vitamin D is the number one recommended thing to make sure that you're getting enough of, because it's so vital, like you say, in so many parts of your life, in so many genetic effects and biological effects and psychological effects
Yes.
even.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that, because vitamin D is actually the only micronutrient that governments across Europe recommend people to take
Uh-huh.
throughout the winter months. And actually, for people with dark skin, or for people who,
Mm-hmm.
for cultural religious reasons, cover their skin,
Mm-hmm.
or don't go around very often, like the elderly or institutionalized adults, like in care homes and so on.
Yeah.
The recommendation is to take vitamin D supplements throughout the year, and the governments don't issue similar recommendations for other vitamins, or for minerals. So again, it goes to show how critical vitamin D is to our health.
Mm. That's how we're biologically made. So if you
Yes.
haven't already, if you guys listening haven't already got your vitamin D supplements, especially during this winter month, so go and get some high quality vitamin D. So do you guys at Usana do vitamin D, or is it not something that you guys do?
No, we do vitamin D. The thing is, the flagship product of Usana is called Essentials. So it's composed of two bottles. One that contains vitamins and antioxidants, and the other one contains core minerals. And in a vitamin bottle, you've got absolutely everything.
A
So
multivitamin?
it's more than that, because it has minerals, and also has a wide array of antioxidants, and also a bunch of phytonutrients that you would not find in over-the-counter multivitamin complexes. So the flagship product, Cell Essentials, already contains quite a bit of vitamin D, and on top, on the side, Usana also has another vitamin D3 supplement for people who wish to supplement the supplementation they already get from Cell Essentials. So right now it's the winter, so I'm doing both.
So is
I'm
it
having both, actually.
you
I'm
having
having
both?
the vitamin D in Cell Essentials, plus the vitamin D on the top
Good. Okay.
from that. Yeah,
Cool.
just
And
to
then
be sure.
is that the name? Is that how we spell it? Usana on the screen there. Can you
That's
see that on
right.
the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. That's an American company that that you affiliated with.
Yes.
So let's talk about insufficiency versus deficiency. I think you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not too sure how that fits into this conversation. So you mentioned that to me before we started. What's the take on the insufficiency versus deficiency within the body?
Right. So the deficiency versus insufficiency is what also enables to make the difference between conventional medicines and more like functional medicine. So conventional medicine, and by conventional medicine, I mean like when you go and see a GP, or when you go and see, I don't know, a nurse at the hospital, when they run tests on you, they look at deficiency levels. I mean,
Mhm.
they look at, for example, the vitamin D levels in your body and
Okay.
compare it with the minimum level under which you are deficient, and therefore run the risk of developing a serious disease over the mid to long term. So, whereas insufficiency, when you are insufficient in vitamin A or vitamin D or zinc or magnesium, it means you are above the minimum level, but you are still below the level that is required over the long term for you to maintain optimal health.
Okay.
So, for example, going back to vitamin D, not all health bodies across Western countries agree on the minimum vitamin D level, but let's say it's 25 nanomoles per liter. So, and anything under that is considered a deficiency that would need to be corrected by either changing your diet or taking a supplement. And your doctor would tell you about this. Now, the optimal level would be considered to be anywhere between 75 to 125 nanomoles per liter. So that means that underneath 25 is deficiency, and therefore, as a kid, you run the risk of developing rickets, which now, I mean, it's gone out of the window pretty much everywhere in the Western world. If you're an adult, you could have osteomalacia, which is the ricket version in adults, like you've got bone demineralization, your bone is just losing calcium, or you run the risk of developing osteoporosis, especially if you're a menopausal woman. And anything between, let's say, 25 and 75 or 100, depending on your metabolism, would be considered an insufficiency.
Insufficiency. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, the problem is that the optimal ranges will vary from one person to the other, depending on their diet, depending on their genetic background, on their gender, and so on.
Okay. So let's get back to, I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking how someone would use that. So I think it's a matter of saying to yourself, what's the minimum that I need, and make sure that you're above that. And even if I think you just got to go for the minimum amount that you need. So if you need that amount to live, make sure that you're getting that amount by supplementing. Which actually brings me on to a question I want to ask you. Now this is a big thing for some people, like they don't take supplements because they don't believe that they work. Myself personally, this is my feelings about it, right? There's certain things that I know definitely work. Like, for example, if I got muscle cramps because I work out quite hard, and so if I'm not taking enough magnesium and don't seem to get enough from my food supplements or wherever I'm getting them, my food intake, then if I do take a magnesium supplement, it does help me with my muscle cramps.
Yes.
So I don't get as many muscle cramps. So I know that taking magnesium works.
Yes.
Right. Because you can feel the effects of it. Also, this might not be a supplement, but I remember I think of the horse chestnut is a tincture, like a herb, and that actually does help me with in the past where I've had piles, and actually that helps the blood circulation. So there's one thing that I really knew worked, but when I take something like, let's say, activated charcoal, I don't know if it's working or not, right? Or vitamin D, you don't know if it's working.
You don't feel it.
Yeah, you don't feel it. So I think it's this thing of, well, I can't feel it, so it must not be working. What do you think?
It's a very complex topic that again depends varies very significantly from one person to the next. If someone is deficient in one or more vitamin or mineral, and they start taking a supplement complex that actually works, and then there's different brands, there's different products. Those people are much more likely to feel the impact, because if you're quite deficient in vitamin D or vitamin A or magnesium, you're not going to feel great. And the fact that you're not feeling great is what is going to prompt you to go and see your GP to say, I'm not feeling great, what's going on? And the GP is going to run blood test, and the blood test will show that you are deficient in one or more of those micronutrients. And then taking the supplements after a few days or after a few days, I'm like, well, actually, no, I feel good. I feel like I'm sort of back to normal.
Yeah.
So for deficient people, the positive impacts would be felt at some point. For people who are insufficient, when you're insufficient, you might feel some symptoms, but the symptoms would be vague. Like you can't necessarily correlate that symptoms to a particular deficiency. You might be, I don't know, you might be exhibiting higher levels of stress than usual, but then it might be related to work. So it's difficult to make a distinction. So then for those people, I understand where the skepticism might come from, but from experience, I know that people already had a good diet, but for example, were quite stressed at work because they had a lot of things and responsibilities on their plate. They started taking Cell Essentials, for example, and they noticed they could deal with stress better, which is very simple. And the reason why they could deal with stress better is because when you are stressed, your body uses a lot of B vitamins to produce the various stress hormones. So, which means that B vitamins are less used for other functions in the body, such as detoxification or energy production. So, at some point, even if you eat well, stress is going to take its toll on your body. And if at that point you decide to have a multivitamin that contains a reasonable amount of B vitamins, your body has that extra source to deal with stress, and therefore you have enough B vitamins to deal with energy production. So that's sometimes the effect that people might feel is going to be very subtle. Hence the skepticism, if that makes sense.
I was just about to talk about that, because the subtlety of taking the vitamin and also the attribution to say, or to realize, oh, that's why I'm feeling good. Because you might take the vitamin or supplement or the minerals and supplements together, and whatever, the minerals and vitamins together, but you may forget that you've taken them, and you do start to feel better, but you can't, then your mind doesn't make the association between what you've taken and how you're feeling right now. So that's probably another thing that people miss, is the association and the attribution of saying, actually, it was the supplements that I was taking that's helping me.
Yes.
So people mustn't forget that, right?
Yeah. And maybe another thing is that, we're in a culture of, I've got a disease. I'm going to take a pill. I'm going to take medication to solve the problem. So maybe there's also that aspect of people thinking of supplements as drugs, and supplements are not drugs. Like, when you think about it, a drug will either prevent your body from doing something, which might or might not be harmful to the body itself, or will do something that your body is supposed to do itself. So just to think about an analogy, you've just had a car accident and you broke your leg, and you need to be in a wheelchair. The wheelchair will kind of be the drug, because the wheelchair is just going to help you move your body from point A to point B. Supplements, they are not drugs in the sense that they don't do what your body is supposed to do. They will help your body do its job better. So going back to the wheelchair analogy, because you've just broken your leg, a supplement would be crutches.
Sure.
So you've broken your leg, you can't really walk, obviously, but you have those crutches that help, that will rely on arm power and on the leg that's not broken to move you from that point A to that point B. So it's the action of supplements, because of that, is much more subtle, but maybe it's healthier as well, because they are drugs that if you take in the long term and they keep doing a job that your body is supposed to do itself, then at some point your body forgets how to do that job itself. If that makes sense. But
So
that's another debate. That's another debate.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't want to be able, you don't want your body to not be able to do what it is supposed to do because you've always
Exactly.
helped it. You've always helped it. It's almost like wearing glasses. Like, are we actually making our eyes lazier and not able to help themselves if we keep wearing glasses? Then I don't know. It's
Like me
like you
right
said.
now.
It's a subtle debate, isn't it? So I used to wear glasses, but I had my eyes fixed with the laser. But now they're kind of going the other way, where I need to things that are a bit close are becoming a bit blurry. That's got to do with my age, I reckon. Anyway, so we've covered a lot, Emily. Thanks a lot, and we've spoken today. Just so people, just to recap on this, we spoke about vitamin D and its the epigenetic effects. Also, we didn't actually get to the mitochondrial health, which maybe we can just touch on as we finish off. And we also spoke about do supplements actually work? We spoke about deficiency versus insufficiency, where you can get vitamin D if you're a vegan, and where the best places are to get it. So maybe as we end off, and I'm not too sure how much you know about the mitochondria, but it's a very interesting topic to me. I spoke to Dr. Ian Tennant about a year ago. Actually, it was just December last year. He wrote a book. I forgot the name of the book now. My memory is quite shocking sometimes. But Ian, if you're there, you're listening, let us know what it's called. And he wrote a book, and he spoke a lot about the mitochondria. And I didn't realize, and I suppose it shouldn't be no surprise at all, that vitamin D does support mitochondrial health. But these little microbes, or whatever they are in our gut, are kind of like our friends, aren't they? And we really got to treat them well if we want to age well. So what's your thoughts on the mitochondria?
Sorry, so are you talking about the mitochondria in the cells, or the microbiome?
No, well, I thought that the mitochondria does make up the microbiome to an extent, because the mitochondria is in the cell, isn't it? Well, it's the powerhouse of the cell. That's
Yes,
what I understand.
yeah, that's right.
So it energizes the cell, or gives the cell energy.
Yeah, that's it's that very small organelle within the cell that is responsible for many things, including energy production. So yes, I mean, mitochondrial health is crucial to energy production, because again, you might get all the nutrients, like all the ingredients they need to make the cake. But if they're not in good shape, then the cake is not going to
rise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we're talking about the souffle, or one rise and
so yeah, I'd love to have some French food right now. Before we talk about France, I was just going to talk about how the cells, so the mitochondria are almost like little helpers. That's how I see them. They're not actually a part of the cell. They're almost like that. There's a certain documentary, I was talking about documentaries. This animal program I watched on TV, where this little crab had another little creature that used to help him, and he was his helper. It was almost like his guardian. But they needed each other. There was like a symbiosis between the two.
Yes.
And I think the cell and the mitochondria are like in that symbiosis, like, oh, I need you and you need me, and we can do our work together. But they're not actually the same element. They're two distinct, different things, but one needs the other. So how does this cell actually help in, let's say, does the cell that within your microbiome, let's talk about the microbiome, because you're eating something, let's say you're eating enriched mushrooms with vitamin D, and it comes down your throat, into your stomach. What's actually doing the work to get that vitamin D into your liver?
So obviously the stomach would do kind of the mechanical digestion, so we'll break down the food. Then it goes into your small intestine, and then at that point, the vitamin D component of the food you've ingested will be absorbed in the lymphatic system. It doesn't go directly into the bloodstream, because it's because it's fat soluble. So everything that is water
Yeah.
soluble goes into the bloodstream straight away. Everything that is fat soluble goes through the lymphatic system first, and
Yeah.
then at that point it goes to the liver, because the liver the liver is kind of a triage system. It checks everything that's been absorbed by your digestive system, just to make sure you've not just to make sure to get rid of any to try and get rid of any toxins or harmful elements that you might have ingested. And then at that point, so the vitamin D arrives in your liver. It's like, oh, okay, the vitamin D. Oh, actually, now I need to convert it into something that is more useful. And or I already have a lot, so I'll just store a bit more. And at that point, there's an enzyme in the liver that's going to be used to transform the vitamin D into what is called calcidiol, which is a more active form. And then that vitamin D will be bound to a protein, again, because it's fat soluble, so it can't travel in the blood like that. It needs to be bound to a protein, packaged in the protein up, and it's taken to the kidneys, and then the kidneys transform the calcidiol into calcitriol, which is the active form of vitamin D.
Amazing.
It's beautiful.
Well, it is beautiful.
And a lot of things can go wrong in the process. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose. But it's such a good design, isn't it? It's amazing. That's awesome. So, okay, so the mitochondria, just so looking after that is really important. And also vitamin D, we did mention that it actually can help reduce the effects of diabetes, or help with diabetes.
Yes.
Also reduce the risk of heart disease, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Which is
it's an indirect effect. It's an indirect effect of vitamin D. Yeah.
Definitely. So I think our listeners have really got a lot out of that about vitamin D, especially. So go and get your supplements, people. Definitely go and get your supplements. Emily, just before we go, thanks for being with us, by the way. And we can obviously hear that you used to live in France, right?
Yes, I'm French. I was born in France, and I stayed in France for a good 20 years before I decided to travel around the world.
Yeah. And at the moment, you're in the UK?
Yes, that's right. I live in Watford. I actually used to live in Greater London. I moved to Watford very, very recently. Work in Canary Wharf, but I haven't seen my office since March, obviously, because of the working from home policy.
And when you were in France, was there more sunshine?
Actually, I come from the north of France.
Oh, so it's quite close to England.
Exactly. So when it's raining in northern France, you can bet it's raining in England, and vice versa. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just, I love England, but sometimes I look out the window and the rain's coming. Apparently, we're going to have like days and days of rain now. But the summers are normally brilliant here. But I think it's the winters, and some people do suffer from SAD, seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah.
That's quite tough. I think this will be a tough winter for some people, especially with the pandemic still happening. Bit of a dark and gloomy Christmas in many ways.
Yeah.
But I think there's still hope on the horizon that we've got the vaccine now. And there's a lot of information. And we're arming people with some information right here in this podcast today. So, Emily, I want to thank you for being on with us, and also just telling us about, what you know about these vitamins and supplements has really helped a few people, I'm sure, and inspired them to go and take better care of their health and just to take some supplements. So I think that's, if you just help one person today, that's a great thing.
Exactly. Thank you very much for having me.
And Emily, how can people get hold of you? I mean, what's the best way? Is it an email, phone number, website, or something like that?
Well, people can contact me on my email address. So it's very simple. It's my first name dot last name at edec.com. So edhec.com.
Hold on, let me write it down and I'll put it on the screen. EDHC, did you say?
EDHEC.
EC, okay. .com, is it?
Yes.
Let me just type this, make sure I get the spelling right. Save. How about that? Does it look right?
Yes, that's correct. It's perfect.
Victory.
Emily
Rombeau. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Nailed it. At edec.com. Thanks so much for being with us on the LifeShot Health and Wellness podcast. It'll be good to have you back sometime next year, and we can talk about some other crazy stuff that the body does, which is so interesting. All these biological effects and all this, the ways that the body just works. It's just amazing to me. And so, Emily, again, stick around. I'll talk to you afterwards. But thanks a lot for being on the LifeShot podcast.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.